I had the same problem with this mic at the last Mass. I'm going to stand up here because it was going in and out, and I apologize if you do hear it going in and out. I was thinking about a long time ago in my history. I was starting work at a company in Philadelphia in the summertime, and in that company I saw a young lady in front of me, and I thought she was interesting, and I kept an eye on her. Oh, to make this story a little bit shorter, I ended up spending time working with her for a month, dated her for a little bit, and made the decision rather quickly that I loved her. That was the first big decision that I've made in my life. Decisions are things that each of us have to do. And our life is dependent upon good decisions. Now, I'm hoping this decision was right because I'm married to her 40 years later, so I think it was a good decision on my part. But through my life, I also had decisions. I had to decide, where am I with my faith? How am I going to practice this faith that I grew up in? And I did practice it, but I practiced it on the light side. Catholic light. That's what I was. That was the wrong decision. And so throughout my life, as I struggled, as I succeeded, I wasn't happy. And then 20 years or so ago, I started to recognize the truth of that decision that I had made. It was the wrong decision. I needed a better, deeper commitment to Jesus Christ. And all the words and all the actions and everything that he was about, I needed to have a deeper, more complete relationship with him. And so I made that decision. And I can tell you from my personal experience that the decision to be a more complete follower of Jesus Christ has brought me joy and happiness through the life's ups and downs. I have done better, felt better. Everything was with much more joy in my life, even if I had some bad things going on. I knew God was with me because I had made that commitment. It wasn't just a so-so commitment. If you look at the first reading, we have Joshua telling the Israelites, "Decide today whom you will serve. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." Decision is made. Let's do it. This is what Joshua says. And he's telling this to the Israelites who are now struggling with following their God. They're being drawn in to follow the worldly gods in the area that they are trying to settle. And Joshua's telling them, you need to make a firm commitment. You can't play it both ways. You can't follow both. You decide. You follow the God of your fathers, or you follow the God of the Canaanites and others in that area, which I will call the worldly gods. He decides to follow God the Father. Now, in Ephesians today, we read the shorter version of an epistle that has a word that we don't like, or many of us don't like. Paul tells the Ephesians in this reading what it is to be a true Christian. To be a true Christian is to be subordinate to one another out of reverence of Christ. This is the model of a home life, this is the model of community life, and this is the model of how to live in the world. To be subordinate. As I got better at recognizing my relationship with my wife, in a marriage, each are subordinate to each other. That's what happens. We are equal. I want to give to the other individual as much as the other individual wants to give back. So the relationship works. When one wants to lord over the other, control, then the relationship falls apart. So in that relationship of subordinate, Jesus Christ is telling us to follow his example. He is the Lord of us, and he is subordinate to us. He is the servant leader. He isn't the controlling leader. He isn't the dictator. He says, please follow me. I love you, and I will care for you. And that is the relationship that Paul is telling us that we take into the world. It's how we live. It's how we love and how we treat each other. I am not your boss. I am here to serve you. And I pray that each of you would be here to serve me. That's what Christ spoke to Paul about in his heart, and that's what Paul speaks of here today. A self-sacrificing love. That is how a family works, when each sacrifices for the other. That's how a marriage works. That's how it works in this world. When we say that our needs aren't as important as those who may be suffering, and I need to spend the time giving them guidance and help. This is what Jesus Christ is talking about. This is the decision that we were asked to make here. Not to go halfway with Jesus Christ, but to decide to fully follow him. Mass and prayers are good. And as Paul and others and James would tell us, actions are important too. I have Christ in my heart, but I don't have time for you. That's not what Jesus is teaching us. Sacrifice of self is what he is teaching us. And that is what you are accepting when you decide to follow Jesus Christ. Now, John in the gospel here, he speaks of what the disciples are saying. This saying is hard. Who can accept it? He's speaking of when Jesus says, you are to gnaw on my flesh and drink my blood. And I think we can all recognize the fact that they didn't have the capabilities to recognize the full truth of what he's saying here, or if they did, they were unwilling to fully commit. When we just follow Christ so, we don't even take him in. We don't drink his blood and we don't gnaw on his body. We just allow it to be out there. And what Christ tells us is it's a difficult thing to accept. But in that, we are saying, and what he is saying is, you need to put God first. That's what it's about. He says, the words I have spoken to you are spirit and life. We understand that our souls need God's Spirit, and we need to live in this physical world. And Christ tells us that his words are full of spirit and full of life. And yet, we will turn to today's world and we will accept what some politician or some guru might have to say that seems that it's more important, it's more pertinent now than Jesus Christ's words are. And I will tell you from my own personal experience that the words that Jesus Christ has spoken can wash over you and guide you through the ups and the downs, because you will focus on your love of God first. And when you gain those extras or lose those extras, so be it. I explore jobs occasionally on my own. I look to see if there's anything out there for me, even though I have a decent job. And I got a call the other day, and it sounded wonderful. And so I talked and communicated and sent some information, and I got a little excited. Now, it was actually 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's dissipated and gone. I didn't harp on it. I didn't say I really need this job because I want to either make more money or have a bigger title. It sounded interesting, but God tells me, when he looks at me, he says, Bill, you can look, and if it's going to happen, it will. And I accept the fact that interesting, lovely job went its way. I'm okay with that because I have God in my heart. I know that. Over the last few years, we've lost several family members. And each time, because I have a trust in all that Jesus tells me, I know that they are in a better place than I am. And I had that gift of their time with me while they were here. I didn't own them, and I didn't say that I can't live my life without them here, because I've put God first. I have put Jesus Christ first. And I hope and pray, and I'm asked to have faith that what he says is true. And that's where maybe each of us has a little bit of failure in trusting and having faith. Because Jesus said many times, if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could move a mountain. And so we have that casual faith. And we don't move those mountains. And we don't do those grandiose things. We don't have as much joy in our heart. But Jesus Christ promises that. If you have faith in him, you will have the joy in your heart. And then we go back to this world. And if I get that bigger TV, I'm going to have much more joy. If I have a faster speed on my internet, I'm going to have much more joy. If I can stream 6 things at the same time and game, I am going to have more joy. No, you will not. If it's secondary in your life, you will have joy. But if that's primary, then the joy will only be temporary. Jesus' words contain the essence of how our life is to be. His words are not always fully understood. We don't always comprehend. But we're asked to have faith. Do I fully trust everything out there? I try. Do I have faith? I try. Is it 100%? No, because I'm a human being and I'm weak. What do our lives and our actions in our lives tell us about the decision that we have made to commit our lives to Jesus Christ? It sounds like a Protestant word, and I'm sorry for saying that, but we've made a commitment to Jesus Christ. It doesn't actually have to be official. You've been baptized. We've had First Communion and Confirmation, and we've gone through maybe another sacrament or two. And we're called to make a decision to truly follow him and love others. This is what Jesus came for, to teach us how to love. He came to enlighten our hearts and our minds, and we just need to be open to those things and allow our faith in those things to pull his grace towards us. It's hard to have God's grace if we don't have faith. It's sort of like wanting something so great without having the money. It takes work on our part. It's going to struggle to have that faith. So I ask each of us, how do we decide to live? I'm going to tell you a wacky thing. I was thinking of the song, Should I Stay or Should I Go Now? It was by The Clash. It was like 35, 40 years old, I think. I don't know. Should I stay or should I go? Should I follow this guy or should I just leave? Is this a bunch of nonsense? And in the song it says, this indecision is bugging me. And I'd ask you, is your indecision on to fully following Jesus Christ, to fully listening to his words and his actions, is that bugging you? It bugs me that I can't follow him as well as I am asked to. And in that struggle, I hope that my faith continues to grow and his grace would wash over me. So I pray that Jesus will help each of us to cast off any of our doubts and any of our fears so that we can fully embrace his words with trust and joy. And I pray that we would surrender ourselves to him and allow him to rule our hearts and our minds with love. Amen.
Amen.